Hey guys, this is Joe Harper with Reformed Truther Ministries. The topic of today's video is 5 Jesuit plots throughout history. We're living in a day and age where most professing evangelical Christians have no idea of their Protestant roots. They have no understanding of the differences between them and Roman Catholicism, and they have no understanding of the particular threat that the Jesuit order and Jesuitism poses to the evangelical Protestant world, and most evangelicals do not even call themselves Protestants today. So in an effort to help Christians and professing Christians to understand the historic threat that Jesuitism has posed to biblical Christianity, today we're going to be covering 5 separate Jesuit plots from history, which will demonstrate how the Jesuits have worked to either destroy Protestant Christianity or simply to increase their power and the power of the Pope and the Catholic Church across the world. So we'll be giving 5 relatively brief overviews of separate plots in history that have been committed by the Jesuits to help people understand the threat of the Jesuit order and Roman Catholicism under the Pope and the Papal Antichrist system. Plot number 1, assassination plots against Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth I of England ruled over her country from 1558 until her death in 1603. Queen Elizabeth came to the throne after the death of her half-sister Mary Tudor, who was known as Bloody Mary due to her severe persecution of Protestants in her country, including martyring a number of them by burning at the stake. Following Bloody Mary's death, Queen Elizabeth came to the throne, and due to the fact that she was a professed Protestant and not Roman Catholic, she was excommunicated by Pope Pius V. Pope Pius V and the Roman Catholic hierarchy encouraged Roman Catholics in the country to attempt to kill Queen Elizabeth and even to take over her throne and allow Roman Catholics to restore dominance over the country. There were a number of plots throughout the reign of Queen Elizabeth, such as the 1571 Ridolfi plot or the 1586 Babington plot, where a group of conspirators led by Anthony Babington and a Jesuit priest named John Ballard hoped to kill the Queen and replace her with Mary, Queen of Scots, as the new Queen of England. Elizabeth's government was able to overthrow these attempts at usurping her rule due to the counterintelligence network led by a man named Sir Francis Walsingham, who served as the spy chief for Queen Elizabeth and in a sense as her guardian angel, which allowed Queen Elizabeth to protect and insulate herself from assassination plots, murders, and to maintain her Protestant rule over the nation of England. Plot number 2, the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre. The St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre was a widespread killing of Protestants by Roman Catholics in France in August of 1572. This took place shortly after the Protestant leader Henry of Navarre's marriage to the sister of the King of France named Margaret. The context of this massacre came in the time of ceasefire between the French Protestants known as Huguenots and the Roman Catholics after many years of warfare in the French Wars of Religion. Protestants had been fighting for their very survival in France due to the fact that the faith was considered heretical by Roman Catholics and was essentially outlawed, and that the French monarchy under the leadership of Roman Catholicism, the Pope, and with the Jesuits instigating it, were working to wipe out the Huguenots from France. The marriage between Henry of Navarre and Margaret was supposed to cement a ceasefire and hopefully a lasting peace between the Protestants and the Roman Catholics. But Margaret's mother, named Catherine de' Medici, alongside the leadership of the Jesuit order, worked to promote the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre shortly after the completion of the marriage. In Paris and in cities across France, Protestants were massacred en masse. Henry of Navarre was spared only upon his promise to convert to Roman Catholicism, as he was one of the chief leaders of the Huguenots, and the other famous Huguenot leader named Admiral Coligny was killed in the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre killings. Later, at the end of the French Wars of Religion, Henry of Navarre, although he had converted to Roman Catholicism, which was seen as a betrayal by the French Huguenots, when he became Henry IV of France, he issued what was called the Edict of Nantes, which said that French Protestantism was a protected faith in France and that Roman Catholics were no longer to persecute the Protestants. This would later be revoked by the famous French king Louis XIV upon the insistence of his Jesuit confessor, and Protestantism was once again a persecuted faith in France, which eventually led to the complete expulsion of Protestants from France, and France became once again a completely Roman Catholic country until the turmoil of the French Revolution in the 18th century. Plot number 3, the Gunpowder Plot. In November 1605, a mercenary by the name of Guy Fawkes, working with the Jesuits, planned to end the reign of King James I of England, destroy the British government, and allow a Roman Catholic group to take over the country of England again, ending Protestant rule over the country. King James I of England was a Protestant, just as Queen Elizabeth had been before him, and this had made him an enemy of the Pope, the Jesuits, and the Roman Catholic Church. The mercenary Guy Fawkes planned alongside the Jesuits to place gunpowder barrels under the joint houses of Parliament and to blow them up when Parliament was gathered together with King James I there as well. On November 5, 1605, English soldiers discovered the gunpowder barrels under the houses of Parliament shortly before they were blown up, and English soldiers testified that the kind providence of God had stopped a travesty coming upon the people and government of England. Guy Fawkes is remembered as a traitor to the English people even to this very day, and for years after the events of November 5th, 1605, Guy Fawkes has been burned in effigy on what has been called Guy Fawkes Day, which has been a sort of Protestant holiday where England remembers the threat that Roman Catholicism had posed to the interest of England and to... Plot number 4, Jesuit forced conversions of the Japanese people. Throughout much of the 16th century and into the 17th century, the Jesuits sent a number of missionaries to the Far East and particularly to the islands of Japan. A number of Jesuit priests and missionaries were very successful in converting the Japanese people and even a number of the Japanese daimyo to Roman Catholicism. They were particularly successful on the southern island of Kyushu, and the city of Nagasaki would become a hub of Jesuitism and Roman Catholicism. It even would be called the Rome of the Far East due to the number of Roman Catholics there in the city and on the island of Kyushu as a whole. Over time, as the new shogunate took power and the Tokugawa shogunate took power in Japan, the Roman Catholics were viewed, and especially the foreign Jesuit priests were viewed with suspicion due to the fact that the Jesuits had been forcibly converting the Japanese people to Roman Catholicism, where the Roman Catholics were in the majority and in power in Japan. The Jesuit priests were mainly from the Portuguese Empire, and these foreign priests were seen as not only forcibly advancing their religion, but secretly serving the imperial ambitions of the Portuguese Empire, and the Japanese shogunate feared that the Jesuit priests were being used as infiltrators to pave the way for a Portuguese invasion of Japan. In addition, Jesuit priests, where they were in power, convinced the Roman Catholic daimyos to produce severe persecution on Buddhist and Shinto worshippers. They destroyed Buddhist and Shinto shrines and temples or converted them into Roman Catholic chapels. They forcibly converted the Japanese non-Catholic peasants, and they put about a program of severe persecution of non-Catholics in the Roman Catholic communities in southern Japan. As a result of this, the shogun Tokugawa Ieyasu in 1609 pronounced an edict of expelling all foreign Roman Catholic priests out of Japan, forcing the Japanese Catholic people to convert back to Buddhism and destroying Roman Catholic chapels in Japan. The program of persecution of Roman Catholics came about under the leadership of the Tokugawa shogunate. This eventually came to a head in 1637 when a rebellion known as the Shimabara Rebellion broke out against the ruling shogunate party, and the shogunate had to use 125,000 troops to put down the rebellion, which ended after the government laid siege to the Roman Catholic stronghold of Hara Castle, where the Roman Catholic peasants and Ronin were finally forced to end their rebellion against the Japanese government. Plot number 5, the Jesuits' assassination of Abraham Lincoln. The man who assassinated Abraham Lincoln was named John Wilkes Booth, and he did not act alone, but was part of a larger Jesuit conspiracy which successfully plotted to kill the American president at the end of the American Civil War. John Wilkes Booth was part of a Masonic-like secret society known as the Knights of the Golden Circle, which was connected to the Jesuits. And John Wilkes Booth co-conspirators were a number of Roman Catholics, including John Surratt and his mother, Mary Surratt. And there were a number of other conspirators such as David Harold, Lewis Powell, and George Azarat. John Wilkes Booth co-conspirator John Surratt, who was a devout Roman Catholic, was able to escape to Canada, and from Canada he was able to escape to Rome. And a few years after the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, U.S. American government authorities found John Surratt in Rome, where he was a member of the Pope's Papal Zouave Regiment in the Vatican. Due to this, the controversy that erupted over this, the United States government cut off all relations with the Vatican, and this was the case from 1867 until 1984, when they were restored under the presidency of Ronald Reagan. Rome's responsibility in the assassination of Abraham Lincoln was proven by a brigadier general named Thomas M. Harris, who was part of the military commission which tried the conspirators in Washington, D.C. Thomas M. Harris, after examining the evidence, was thoroughly convinced that the Jesuits and Rome had plotted to kill the American president, and he wrote a book titled Rome's Responsibility in the Assassination of Abraham Lincoln, which showed that even the highest members of the American government and the American military believed that this was in fact the case. Prior to Lincoln's assassination, a friend by the name of Charles Chiniquy, who was a former Roman Catholic priest converted to Protestantism, had warned Lincoln that the Jesuits had planned to kill him, and these warnings later came to pass. Charles Chiniquy wrote the most famous Protestant book against Roman Catholicism in history, arguably, titled 50 Years in the Church of Rome, where Chiniquy describes in detail his experiences in the Roman Catholic Church. This book has largely been forgotten by Protestants across the world, except for a number of faithful conservative Protestants. These number of Jesuit plots in history show the fact that Jesuitism has historically been an order dedicated to fighting against Protestantism, increasing the power of the Pope and the Roman Catholic Church across the world, and that the Jesuits have never been afraid to use political coups, assassination, murders, the twisting of theology, coercion, and manipulation to advance their goals. Christians today would be far better off if they took the proper time to study the techniques of Jesuitism and understand that even in the modern era, this threat has never gone away, and that the Jesuits are among the greatest enemies of the true Christian church, biblical Protestant Christianity across the world.